Well, it is Chords and Coffee coming to you today from down here on the sales floor at the Springfield store. You know, sometimes we have to work really hard to find time to squirrel away, to practice, or even just to play the guitar, just to get the darn thing in our hands. And I don't know about you, but I've got these little things I just kind of like to noodle around on, and I thought today it'd be kind of cool if I showed you one of these chord progressions, kind of a chord meditation, if you will. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. All right, so this is a lesson on kind of you can think of this as a chord meditation. I was, working with my buddy Mike Bennett the other day. Mike, I love you, man. And Mike's a great player, and we were working on some chord progressions, and he asked me if I had some things that I just sort of noodle around with or just work. And the cool thing about having some just pretty chord progressions that aren't particularly necessarily attached to a song, though this one, full disclosure, is something that I sort of fell into while I was trying to extrapolate the chords from the Bill Evans version of What Are You Doing for the Rest of Your Life, from a great album called From Left to Right, Bill Evans, the keyboard player. Beautiful album. And so I was listening to that, and I'd listened to it so much that one day I just these chords just kind of fell out of my hands, which is the byproduct of listening to something forever. And anyway, I came up with this, and I'll just kind of play it every now and then. It's just sort of a noodle, but I showed it to Mike. And it can be something that sometimes when you're wanting to play guitar and you need something to work on, but just really something to get in your hands, and probably more even important than that, is something that can help you just kind of disengage from all the distraction, all the busyness, and all the different things that you have vying for your attention. So let me show you this progression. It's really pretty. It starts off with an A minor 9. You're going to have your ring finger on the 12th fret of the A. You're not going to do anything with the low E. Your middle finger is going to be on the 10th fret of the D. And then your index is going to be on the 9th fret of the G. And then your pinky is going to be on the 12th fret of the B. You can play the high E too. But I kind of like it with just stopping on that B string, because I want to emphasize that. Now the next chord is exactly the same thing. The only thing that changes is that your ring finger is going to go down to the 11th fret of the A. So ring finger on the 11th fret of the A, middle finger still on the 10th fret of the D, index still on the 9th fret of the G, and then pinky still on the 12th fret of the B. So that's an A minor major 7. So A minor 9, A minor major 7. The minor major 7, that's like the second chord in Stairway to Heaven. That kind of sound there, right? Now the next chord after this is a G6. So you can see that already the bass line is just walking down chromatically, right? So you got your middle finger on the 10th fret of the A. You've got your index finger is making a little tiny bar. It's going to be on the 10th fret of the 9th fret of the D and the G. And then your pinky is going to be on the 12th fret of the B. Still the same. So right away you got three chords. And you've got this pedal tone of the B note that's sitting on top of all those. And then you get to this F sharp minor 7 flat 5. And sometimes when I'm noodling with it, I might go and just kind of play a little melody right there. Or even just like have that B come down to the A. But F sharp minor 7 flat 5 is going to be index finger on the A string of the 9th fret. Going to be ring finger on the 10th fret of the D. It's going to be middle finger on the 9th fret of the G. And then pinky is going to be on the 10th fret of the B. So. Right? And then this is F major 9. And think of this as like a C chord with an F in the bass. So you're going to have your index finger here on the 8th fret of the A string. Your pinky is going to be on the 10th fret of the D. Ring finger, 9th fret of the G. And then middle finger is on the 8th fret of the B. So here again, we're just walking straight down chromatically. And we got one more. Now this, a couple of different ways to think about this chord. You could think about this chord as another A minor 9 chord, but I'm not playing the A in the bass. I'm actually playing the E in the bass. So because of that, and because there's a C natural in it, I'm kind of thinking of this as like an E minor 7 sharp 5, because I got that C natural in there, right? But you can think about it as an A minor 9 over E too. Whatever you like, Chords and Coffee, my hat's off to you. So with that being said, index finger on the 7th fret all the way across from the A string all the way to the high E. And then you're going to have your middle finger on the B string of the 8th fret. Your pinky is going to be on the 10th fret of the D, and then low E finally comes into play. And then this. And so I'm thinking of that as a B9. And I've got my middle finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the low E. I'm skipping the A. I've got my ring finger on the 7th fret of the D. I've got my index finger on the 6th fret of the G, and then my pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the B. And then after that, we're going to go to A minor 9 again. Wait! Almost forgot. In between and this, there's a wonderful moment. And what that is an E7 with a flat 9 on it to an E7, right? And what you got is, you know this chord, it's like a C7. And so you've got your ring finger on the 7th fret of the A, you've got your middle finger on the 6th fret of the D, you got your pinky on the 7th fret of the G, and then index finger is on the 5th fret of the B. Now, that's an E7, but on this E7 flat 9, your index and your middle finger are going to kind of little switcheroo. That's the sound you make when you switch. They're going to go like this. So your index is going to come where your middle was. So index is now going to be on the 6th fret of the D string. You're like, well, that's scrunchy. Well, it is. That's what a flat 9 would do for you. And then you go to your middle finger is going to be now on the 6th fret of the B string. And then you're going to resolve that. And that happens right before the A minor 9. And then after that, we're going to go to A minor 9 again. Except instead of here, we're going to be here. And if you want to be extra fancy, you might slide into it from a half step back where I've got my index finger laid across the D, the G, and the B of the 5th fret. Pinky is on the 7th fret of the high E. And if you want to take that off, I ain't mad at it. Now this time, instead of going to the G sharp and the A minor like we did before up here for that A minor major 7, we're just going to go ahead and do an E over G sharp just to really emphasize a little bit of a different harmonic movement as we're working our way downward here. And that's just going to be your middle finger on the 4th fret of the low E, skipping the A, index finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the D, ring finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G, and then pinky is going to be on the 5th fret of the B. Now from here, this is kind of an interesting thing because remember last time we had this A minor, we're just moving this one note here and we're kind of changing the chords. Same kind of situation. Except what we're going to do is we're going to move our middle finger down to the 3rd fret of the low E. And that one note changes the complete context of that situation. A friend of mine, we got a lot of things cooking around here lately, and sometimes it's easy. Here's a little quick philosophical moment with Chords and Coffee. You don't have to pay extra for this. This just comes with it, so there you go. But a friend of mine told me, we were talking about, navigating challenging circumstances, and he said, isn't that amazing? Sometimes the only thing that changes is your mind. And sometimes one note changes everything in a chord. I just think it's interesting. How you do anything is how you do everything. Let's build a little bit. Chords and Coffee. All right, so that G6. And then from here, we're going to go down to D over F sharp. Now, you might want to go, maybe take that D over F sharp, make that a, D7 over F sharp. Why not? I'll tell you why here in just a second, but first let's get this in our hands. Index finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the low E. And then your middle finger is going to be on the, you can play the A and the D if you want to. I will say this to your ear, and you listen to it and you tell me. But it sounds good, but it might be too muddy. It might be too much information down there. Right? Depends on the tone, what kind of guitar you're playing, all that jazz. But I'm just playing the index finger on the low E. I'm skipping the A, D, May ring in there. And then I got my middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G. And then my pinky is on the 3rd fret of the B. And if I switch it down to this D7, I'll just switch my fingers around so it's middle instead of index on the low E, 2nd fret, and then ring on the 2nd fret of the G, and then index on the 1st fret of the B. And then from here, let's see, what did I do here? Oh yeah, we're gonna go to something like that. Sort of playing around with an F major 7 sharp 11. Well, what in the world is that? Well, it's an F major 7, so it's an F, A, C, and the major 7 is going to be an E natural. And then the sharp 11, 11 is the same thing as a 4, just an octave higher. And so a sharp 11, what's the 4th in F? Well, if I just 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a B flat. But if it's sharp, it's going to be raised a note. So it's going to be a raised 4th or flat 5. Don't get too far in the weeds, but it's that Lydian sound. And since we've had that B natural and that A minor so much, our ear is totally cool with it. It's kind of haunting too. And so all I'm doing here is I've got my index finger on the 1st fret of the low E string. I've got my ring finger, skipping the A, I've got my ring finger on the D string of the 2nd fret. That F and that E rubbing together like that. And then I've got my pinky on the 2nd fret of the G. There's your A, and then an open B string and an open E. And I did a little, just a second ago, kind of lick, and that's just on the 1st fret of the B, pulling that off, and then maybe on the 2nd fret, if you want to. I'm not sure if I'll have that on the chord chart or not, but I think you get it. 2nd fret of the G. If you like it, and then an E, just good old E. You can do just the regular old E like Mel Bay taught you with your index finger. You're on the 1st fret of the G string, ring on the 2nd fret of the D, and then middle on the 2nd fret of the A. Everything else wide open, like your mind. Or you can just skip that A altogether. So all the way up until that point. What if we went to what if we went major there just for the heck of it? So after that E, we go to an A major 7. This is going to be a middle finger on the 5th fret of the low E, hitting that A note, skipping the A, ironically, because sometimes you can have too many of them. And then you've got your ring finger and your pinky here glued together. Ring finger is on the 10th fret, is on the 6th fret of the D, and then on pinky is also on the 6th fret of the G. And then my index finger is going to come back here on the 4th fret of the high E, and I'm going to hit that open B string. So it's really like an A major 9, because you got that B up there. Or an A major 7 sus2, technically, since that B is kind of in the same octave as that root note. A major 9 is what I'm going to call it. And then we're going up here to C major 7, use the exact same grip, just slide that whole sheboing up to the 8th fret. And then back to that F major 9 we did a second ago, right? And then slide down to the 5th fret for the D. You can hit that open E if you want to. That's going to be index finger on the 5th fret of the A, pinky on the 7th fret of the D, ring finger on the 6th fret of the G, and then middle on the 5th fret of the B. And then I ended it's essentially the exact same chord I just did, but this is a simplified version where I have my index finger on the 4th fret of the high E, open B, and then, let's see, and then I'll have my middle on the 6th fret of the G, and then ring on the 7th fret of the D. So sometimes little chord meditations like that, look, I know a lot of times people talk about like, what am I supposed to practice? Return on investment and time and all that kind of stuff is super important. And there was a video going around of, I think it was Jimmy Bruno, talking about practice in a very direct manner. And he's right, it's not rocket science. You just find something that you don't do well, and you keep working it until not only do you do it well, but you can do it well in multiple tempos, and you really own that information. Just like with language. We've all heard somebody, a good friend of ours who shows up one day and is wedging a word that they just learned into the conversation, and you can tell, it's almost like that scene from Princess Bride. I don't think you know what that word means, right? And you can just kind of tell like they're trying to learn it. But you know what? My hat's off to them, because the only way you improve your vocabulary is by adding new words. And you have to look up and see what that word means. You have to hear language using that word in a context, in a situation where it's relevant and it makes sense, right? And the more you understand it, the more you use it, the more comfortable you become wielding it. And it is the same with music. The more you listen to it, the more you understand it, the more you work with it, the more you become comfortable wielding it, in this case, expressing yourself on guitar. So I hope this is helpful to you. I would love if you could just fill in the comments, just put a chord progression that you like to play around with. Look, some of you might be thinking, well, anybody steal my chord progression? If I felt that way, I wouldn't be sharing anything with you. The way that I feel about all of this is that I want to make a connection. I want to share what I know, but also every time I do, I learn a little bit more about that than what I knew before. It's the power of sharing. And it's the power of what we do here on Chords and Coffee every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. Friends, we are living life the best we can with the guitar in our hands. I look forward to seeing you every week. Thank you for participating in the live chat. Thank you for sharing these videos. And thank you for hitting that subscribe button. We'll see you next week.